Welcome to today's press briefing. We have on the stage two doctors, Dr. Zhang Shukwan, Head of Communicable Disease Branch, Center for Health Protection, and Dr. Lau Ga-hin, Chief Manager of Hospital Authority. They will give you an account of HA's situation and update on COVID-19 cases. Dr. Lau, first, in relation to patients in our system, we have 1,553 patients in our facilities. 164 of them are new cases. For those requiring isolation facilities, there are 998 of them, of which 433 are now in isolation wards, 92 of them are in second-tier isolation wards, and 473 patients are in Hong Kong, North Lantau Hospital, Hong Kong Infection Control Center. 133 of them are new cases. And yesterday, we reported 6 more patients in critical condition, 8 patients in serious condition. And as for inpatients, there are 20 in critical condition and 24 in serious condition. 6 patients in critical condition are receiving care in the ICU. We also reported 4 new death cases, who are 3 males and 1 female, aged 84 to 89, and among the death cases, 2 of the deceased were care home residents. And among the 4, 3 of them had not completed the 3-dose vaccination regime. So I would like to appeal to you once again. For those who have only been singly or doubly jabbed, especially elderly people with chronic illnesses, please get the 3rd jab as quickly as possible to enhance the protection. Among the 4 death cases, we had a female patient, 89-year-old, and according to her medical history, she had a number of chronic illnesses, hypertension, DM. She also had a stroke, arrhythmia, and she also previously had breast cancer. She had 2 doses of vaccine. She passed away yesterday, but 2 or 3 days before she passed away, she began to feel unwell at home, including exhibiting a fever, but the patient did not get tested. She did not see a doctor. Not until yesterday, when her family member found her unconscious, that the ambulance was called. She was sent to the A&E department and resuscitation was administered immediately. However, despite resuscitation, she passed away. So this is a reminder for the general public. If you have any discomfort, if you have a fever or upper respiratory infection, you should get tested as soon as possible, be it via RAT or PCR, to see if you've been infected. And even if you haven't been infected, if you are an elderly with chronic illnesses, as long as you don't feel well, you should see a doctor as quickly as possible. Because for COVID-19 cases, we can prescribe the oral antiviral drugs to reduce the chance of passing away or getting a serious condition. 163 patients recovered as of yesterday, including 146 who were discharged. There were also 3 patients identified as being infected by admission screening, and 8 inpatients and staff members have been identified as close contacts. As for HA staff, 26,252 have been infected so far, and 25,710 of them have returned to their positions. I'd also like to give you an update on the vaccination progress. We'd like to remind everyone that vaccination is very important in protecting yourself and those around you, including your family members. Starting tomorrow, the eligible age for vaccination will go down to 6 months, and parents can start to make bookings tomorrow. And we have about 50 GOPCs under the hospital authority that could provide vaccination for children. So parents should act quickly and send their children to get vaccinated to enhance protection. And starting from tomorrow, those at the age of 50 could get the fourth dose as well. We also urge the public to get vaccinated as quickly as possible. Next, I'd like to announce some information in relation to transfer of patients to private hospitals. In light of increase in the number of inpatients recently, more hospital beds will have to be made available in public hospitals to receive COVID-19 patients. Depending on demand, some patients in stable condition will have to be transferred to other facilities for further treatment. And in light of the latest development, on a need basis, public hospitals would also refer patients to suitable private medical institutions for follow-up treatment. We're grateful for the private institutions for offering help, and we look forward to more collaboration so that more patients can receive adequate care. Good afternoon. As of yesterday, we recorded 4,321 local positive cases, including 1,711 PCR positive cases and 2,610 RAT cases successfully confirmed via PCR. We also had 226 imported cases, including 205 tested via PCR and 221 via RAT. And as reported by Dr. Lau, we reported 4 death cases as well. So the total death count for the 5th wave is 9,331 cases. Now, among the 226 imported cases, 118 cases were picked up at the airport and 68 cases were picked up in designated quarantine hotels, and 40 other cases were picked up after the confinees had left hotels. The 226 cases came from 41 countries, and 6 countries imported more than 10 cases, including 43 from UK, 31 from India, 23 from the Philippines, 17 from the US, and 16 from Singapore, and 12 from Thailand. As for the remaining 35 places, they've imported less than 10 cases. For care homes, we have 3 RCHEs and 3 RCHDs having recorded infections, and some residents will have to be quarantined. The first one is in Tsuen Wan, Ding An 護老院有限公司, with 1 resident infected and 22 residents will have to be sent to quarantine. Next, Chilin Nunnery, Chilin 護理安老院. In this care home, 1 staff member has been infected and 3 residents will be subject to quarantine. 陽光護理之家 in North District, with 3 residents testing positive, and 19 residents will have to be quarantined. For residential care homes for the disabled, 靈實寶林日間活動中心暨宿舍, that's a daycare center come hostel in Sai Kung, and 1 staff member has been infected and 7 residents will have to be quarantined. The next one, 保良局薄扶林復康中心, 1 staff member came down with COVID and 3 residents would have to be quarantined. Next, 竹園區神志院節日軒 in Tsuen Wan, 1 case and 3 residents subject to quarantine. As for schools, today is Wednesday. Altogether, we received 437 positive cases from 330 schools, including 356 students and 81 teaching staff. And among the 437 positive cases, they've come from 69 kindergartens cum childcare centers, 158 primary schools, 105 secondary schools, and 7 special schools. 228 schools have reported more than 2 cases in the past 7 days. Today, we have recommended the following 5 schools to be suspended for a week, including 香港九龍塘基督教中華基督教 陳元喜小學 is in Sha-Tin, Class 2A, 28 students with 3 cases. 瑪利諾神父教會學校小學部 in Sham Shui Po, Class 3B, 26 students with 3 coming down with COVID. 田景村浸信會女角碧鳳 Kindergarten is in Tuen Mun, Class K1B, 20 students with 3 positive cases. 心怡天地幼稚園 in Lai Shing, Belvedere Garden in Chuen Wan. PN Wetland Class 16 students with 2 cases. For Secondary School in Kwun Tong, Class 5D, 32 students with 4 positive cases. So these are the 5 schools in which some classes will have to be suspended for a week, and we suspended some classes in 2 schools on the 1st of August. 聖安當小學 in Kwun Tong, Class 2C was suspended in this primary school. Now Class 2E recorded 3 students testing positive among the 30 students. So far, we have not identified the link between the 2 classes, but Class 2E will have to be suspended for a week.
And Bingor Kindergarten in Eastern District, the 30 students suspended for 1 week, as advised on August 1st, and Zhongdi class, also 3 confirmed positive. We didn't establish the link. And also the subvariant, BA 2.12.1 or BA.4, BA.5, we've seen an increasing trend. Over the past week, on average, BA.2, 0.12.1, 5.7%, BA.45, 4.8% for a single day number over the past couple of days. Each day, they have increased by 7%. So if you have 3 shots of the vaccination, it would be effective against serious cases and mortality. And I urge the members of the public who haven't been vaccinated to go get vaccinated. It's now time for questions. Please identify the organizations you represent. The lady in middle, please. TVB News. 3 questions, if I may. The former CEO of HA, Ms. Dr. Leung Pak-yin, said that the COVID has peaked and there will not be any upsurge. How do you see the development there? And for vaccination, it would be brought down in age to 6 months. Are there going to be any side effects with the lowering of the age threshold? And for public hospitals, do we have enough beds? You mentioned some redeployment and so on. Right, with regard to the trend, we have to keep this under observation as to whether it has peaked. It will take some time before we can be certain about it. As to the vaccination, we have struck a balance between all the factors. It's only in a safe situation that we would recommend the vaccination like this. We have 1,500 or so patients who are COVID positive patients in public hospitals, and they are under treatment at the present moment for the isolation wards for the first and second tiers. We still can admit patients, but you have to realize that we're not really treating COVID positive patients. We do have the non-COVID patients who are under treatment, cardiac patients, stroke patients, and so on. They, when there is an onset, they have to be admitted to hospitals. And so we have to get the hospital beds ready, not for not just COVID positive patients, but also the non-COVID patients. There should be enough beds available for them. And I'm grateful to the private hospitals for their cooperation. And for non-COVID patients, if they need rehabilitation and convalescence, we will transfer them to the private hospitals to free up the beds for COVID patients. there are some COVID patients who can be transferred to the TMHK Medical Center. They do have beds available to admit COVID patients as well. And we hope that with the collaboration and concerted efforts, we should be able to make available the hospital beds for patients of different kinds. The lady at the back, please. Now TV. For the 4th disease cases, 2 are from care homes. Can you be more specific about the care homes and the details? You mentioned also that for COVID patients and are likely to be transferred to TMHK medical centers, how many beds will become available there? Well, I don't have the information about the care homes, but if you want further information, one of them is 84-year-old male. On July 14th, he was confirmed positive, and he was admitted to Caritas Medical Center. He had some chronic diseases. In the brain scan, he showed signs of the stroke, and he suffered from neurodegeneration and dementia. And he was in a care home, couldn't express himself. His condition deteriorated in the hospital, and he passed away yesterday. The other one, 89-year-old male, he was admitted on 24th and tested COVID positive on 25th. Again, he suffered from various chronic diseases, hypertension, and he had a history of brain hemorrhage, and he has had surgery, and he was in a poor condition. He was administered remdesivir, but his conditions worsened persistently. He passed away yesterday. And for the TMHK MC, there are 24 beds available for the stable COVID patients to be transferred there for further treatment. Next, please. The lady on the right in the front row, please. Cable news. Now, the lowering of the age threshold for vaccination, 6 months to 5 years of age, is the only one single type of vaccine that will be available for vaccination. Are there data to prove that this is safe? What symptoms appear, and do they have to go seek medical attention if certain symptoms appear? And for private hospitals, how many hospital beds will become available? Are there 300 you talked about previously? Given the trend of COVID, how soon do you think you will have to utilize the 1,000 beds in the private sector? Professor Lo Chung-Mao said that the quarantine period is likely to be reduced. Is there no room for further reduction? How many days should it be shortened by in terms of quarantine? He mentioned the yellow and red code for Taiwanese and overseas people. What about mainland visitors? And after leaving the hotel, people cannot go into places where they have to take off the mask. And what about the arrangement there? Right. Now for 6 month to 5 year old vaccines for children, we're still procuring the BioNTech vaccine. Only the Sinovac is available. Now, the scientific committee's recommendation has balanced the pros and cons. It's only they consider safe that they would make this recommendation. As to the red and yellow code, I've got nothing to add there. We understand that the 13 private hospitals are making available 364 beds. We are still in discussion with them, depending on how the COVID is panning out and depending on the needs. We hope that there will be further room for collaboration and secure more beds for the patients.
Next question. on the left.
Questions from Phil TV News. So first of all, as you mentioned, you're going to coordinate with the private hospitals to provide some beds for the COVID-19 patients. So does it mean if the public healthcare system can really handle the surging coronavirus case number, and how many beds can be provided by the private hospitals? And you mentioned the proportion of subvariants is increasing. So does it mean it poses more risk to the society and the government should further tighten the social distancing measures? Thank you.
Maybe I'll answer about the variant first. From the overseas experience, the subvariant BA.5 especially has taken over other subvariant Omicron in many places. So we have circulating BA.5 in Hong Kong, as well as BA.2.12.1. So we have been closely monitoring the proportion of these subvariants and see whether there's any changes. And recently, we have observed an increasing trend of these two subvariants. According to the literature from World Health Organization, these subvariants may be more transmissible, but there's no evidence of increased severity or other complications. So we understand that the current vaccination with at least 3 doses can prevent severe illness and death caused by these subvariants. So we will urge the public to try to complete the vaccination as recommended as soon as possible in case this subvariants becomes more prevalent in Hong Kong.
Usually, we will transfer the stable patients to our convalescent or rehabilitation hospital in order to provide more acute beds for the patients in either COVID patient or non-COVID patient. In the recent surge of admissions of COVID patients, private hospitals, now 13 private hospitals have provided 364 beds for our COVID and non-COVID patients. Most of them are for non-COVID patients. CU Medical Center has provided 24 beds for the COVID patients. This measure is important because we can discharge more patients to the private hospital so that we can have more beds in the acute hospital for both COVID and non-COVID patients. So I hope hospital authority can work with the private hospitals in the future to provide more beds for us so that more patients can be discharged from our public hospitals.
下一題，問多條英文問題啦，早晨。
Next, another English question.
Some questions from RTHK. So about the transfer of patients, how many patients are transferred to other wards and private hospitals, and what kind of patients are they, and what's the target of private hospital beds as well? Thank you.
Currently, we have transferred about, at this moment, about 14 to 50 patients are now in the private hospitals. But now we will find more patients who are suitable to be managed in the private hospitals. The patients can be from the medical ward, for example, after a stroke or after a cardiac attack, or from the surgical stream, for example, after the operation. What the patients need is some rehabilitation or some convalescent treatment. So we hope that we can discharge more patients either from the medical field or surgical field to the private hospitals in order to make more beds available in the acute hospital for both COVID and non-COVID patients.
下一題右。
Next question, this gentleman on the right-hand side. I'm from AM 730. I have a question on the utilization rate of isolation beds and about transfer of patients to private hospitals. How many patients have been screened and transferred to private hospitals? what is the nature of their situation. And for the 300 plus beds discounting COVID-19 patients, will the supply of hospital beds come on stream immediately or progressively? About the 89-year-old female patient who passed away, was there any record concerning the RAT test results of her family members? And you talked about a 70% increase. Was it a slow climb or a rapid surge? And will Hong Kong follow other places' trend for BA.5 to overtake other subvariants? It's a progressive surge, and that's the 7-day average as announced in a press release with some fluctuations. About 2 days ago, the figure spiked, exceeding 7%. As mentioned just now, 13 hospitals are providing 364 beds at this moment for patients from the medical or surgical wards in stable condition to be transferred there. And these patients may have received an operation and they are in stable condition. I do not have the figures at hand. I must say that the figures fluctuate because every day we try to find suitable patients to be transferred, and we need to decide whether they can receive treatment further in their facilities. And we continue to engage in discussion with private hospitals. If we have an acute shortage of hospital beds, we do hope that more beds can be made available in their facilities so that we can better utilize our hospital beds. And as mentioned just now, for first-tier isolation wards, we have 433 patients, and as mentioned before, we have 1,200 beds available. And for second-tier wards, we received 92 patients. We also have 473 patients in the Hong Kong Infection Control Center. So there is room to further receive non-COVID patients. But as mentioned just now, apart from non-COVID patients, we also have other non-COVID patients being admitted on a daily basis for treatment. So we have some 20 cases, COVID cases, taking up the 364 beds. As for the remaining beds, we hope to receive non-COVID patients and also to make more beds available to minimize the impact on our service level. On the 89-year-old case, I don't have further information at the moment as to whether the son and the helper who lived with her tested positive as well. I just want to reiterate, because this elderly lady actually had fever for 2 days. She also had poor appetite. So if you experience any discomfort, you should get tested or see a doctor as quickly as possible. If you don't feel well enough to just go out and seek help, and if you test RAT positive, you can just ring our hotline 1836 or 115, or use the HA Go mobile app to make a booking for a teleconsultation service. And of course, family members should also help elderly family members make bookings in case they are not familiar with the app. And if the case is deemed suitable, then we can prescribe oral antiviral drugs to the patients concerned so as to minimize the risk of severe cases. Last question on the right-hand side. I'm from Ming Pao. Good afternoon. You mentioned that at the moment 40 or 50 patients have been transferred to private hospitals. May I know among them how many cases are COVID patients, how many are not, and under what circumstances would COVID-19 patients be transferred to the CUHK facility? And for the 24 beds available in CUHK, how many beds have been taken up? And about the antiviral drug, how many patients are using AstraZeneca drugs, and what is the efficacy? And for young children above the age of 6 months, starting tomorrow, they can get jabbed. And if they test positive, can they also use the same AstraZeneca drug? And according to the secretary, on the third day of arriving passengers, if they get if they are subject to PCR tests, over 80% of positive cases can be identified. That means more than 10% will enter the community. Do we accept this level of risk if we shorten the days of quarantine to just 3?
Well, in terms of quarantine, the government or the Bureau will make the announcement when they have the information. For the patients transferred to the private hospitals, they are non-COVID patients. They've been given treatment, they become stable, and we transfer them to a place where they have rehabilitation and convalescence, and they are in various private hospitals for treatment. As to AstraZeneca, as we mentioned, we have 190 patients who have been inoculated with AstraZeneca medicine, and they are the organ transplant patients, the hematology patients, and some of them are immunocompromised, and the antibody will certainly protect them, but I'd like to reiterate that any patients, including the immunocompromised patients, that they should really get vaccinated, and we will monitor the utilization of the medicine, and we will be procuring the right quantity of vaccines for the patients. The procurement work is at hand, and in the next couple of months, the medication will be delivered. And for those with poor immunity or who are immunocompromised, they need this kind of medication. And for those who have had organ transplants, they also need the medication. The experts are keeping this under review. Thank you very much. That's it for today.